Hey guys, hope everyone out there is doing well as always. And the last video, I kind of mentioned the whole Mac versus PC thing. And I thought I would share with you just some of my experience on this and some of the things that I'm thinking about right now. Because some of you have already commented on the previous video, so I thought I would just go ahead and open up this new topic. If you're new to this channel, most of what I talk about on this channel is issues that revolve around expats in the Philippines. But it does kind of connect to this, my experience as an expat does kind of connect to this topic. But if you're interested in someone who's actually reviewing different computers and tablets and that kind of thing, apologies, this video is not for you. But anyway, you may still be able to benefit from it, but let me just kind of share with you a little bit of my background in terms of the different types of laptops that I've used over the years. Mostly I've used, or when I first went to the Philippines, I had just bought an old Dell, I had just bought a Dell laptop. I forgot the model it was, and I think it was Inspiron or something like that. And I used that for a few years. It got outdated, so once again I updated to I bought another Dell Inspiron when I was in the U.S. And I do remember the second Dell that I had kind of completely wigged out on me. I remember the keyboard just went absolutely nuts. I mean, it would be like the keyboard would act as though someone were repetitiously pressing the space bar. So I would pull something up and just everything would go crazy. And I did have some difficulty getting that repaired in the Philippines. Now, it may have been that I just didn't know where to go to do so, but I did have to take a taxi over to the Dell place in the Philippines, and that's what I ended up doing. And the irony was, when I first began calling Dell technical support, I was having to call long distance to the United States to reach someone who was in the Philippines doing the tech support. So it was really kind of not a very good situation, but to make a long story short, I did get that keyboard replaced. And when I did send a letter complaining to Dell about what I'd gone through, and if memory serves me correctly, they sent in a letter of apology, and they even sent a check for about $100, whatever I told them I had spent on the repairs and the transportation and all that. So for quite a few years, my early years in the Philippines, I was using Dell laptops. Windows XP was the operating system at the time. And that's what I was doing. Well, eventually that Dell laptop that I mentioned, the second one, it was starting to get a little bit outdated. I had done some upgrades to it and everything. And I tried to buy a Vista computer, Windows Vista. Anyone out there remember that? Needless to say, that was a complete nightmare. I bought one or two computers, laptops, and I ended up just taking them both back because to me Vista was just completely awful. And instead of buying a new laptop, what I did is I just did some upgrades to the Dell. But eventually Vista is what caused me to start looking at Apple products again. So the first Apple computer that I bought was a black MacBook. This is when they still made the plastic ones. And one reason that I really began seriously considering a MacBook was when I was in the Philippines, I needed something that was very reliable. I needed something that you could do plug and play into projectors very easily. And the MacBook turned out to be very good for that. I had a little plastic, again, this is when they had still used the plastic covers. I had a little black MacBook that I bought, and it was really good. I enjoyed the operating system. And again, keep in mind at the time the choice was either to go to something completely different or use Windows Vista, and I was just not about to use Windows Vista. So that's kind of how I switched over to Apple products. This was 2007. I remember I made a little blog post about it and everything, and it worked out really well. I really enjoyed using Apple products. And somewhere along this time, a few years later, I remember I bought an iPad. I bought the very first iPad that came out. I thought that was pretty cool because, again, living in the Philippines, there were times when buying a book on Kindle was a lot easier than trying to figure out how to get a hold of a hard copy of it. And I eventually bought another MacBook Pro. This is the one that I'm using right now as we speak. In the MacBook that I'm using now, what I actually did is I upgraded it. I put a solid state hard drive in it, and I now have upgraded it to 16 gigs of RAM. So to a certain extent, the MacBook that I'm using now, even though this is a mid-2010 model, it's kind of like a 2015 model in some ways. I'm sure the screen is not as high quality as what they have now, but in terms of the performance and everything, it's doing pretty well. But something that I mentioned in the last video is I'm not really sure that my wife and I are going to continue to be as loyal to Apple products as we have been. So right now we have I bought two iPads since that original. My wife has an iPad mini, and I have an iPad Air. I use that when I preach. I put my notes on iBooks and I preach with that and everything. We have two iPhone 5s. Right now we have no intention of upgrading because it seems like they upgrade every 6 months to a year or come out with a new model. And all this to say, I'm not sure that I will be as loyal to Apple products as I have been over the past 10 years or so. The newest MacBook, the MacBook Pro, I think it's the 2016 model, I don't like what they've done with that at all. If you look at some reviews here on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about. And the thing is now, the technology in terms of hardware has kind of caught up to the operating systems. In other words, this mid-2010 MacBook Pro that I have is running the latest Apple operating system without any problems. And when it comes time to upgrade, the question for me is going to be, especially now that I'm in the United States and I'm not using a laptop for presentations quite as much as I did in the Philippines, and now that, at least in theory, in a lot of places getting good repair work done is not going to be difficult. In other words, if I buy a Dell, I could send it back to them very easily if I had a problem with it. Considering all those things, I'm just not sure what we will get next. Again, there's no rush on me to buy anything right now, but we are seriously thinking about, if we buy a desktop over the next year or two, just buying a Windows desktop. I'm just not sure right now that for us, the additional money for the Apple brand is really worth it anymore. And I even like some of the stuff that Microsoft is doing. The Microsoft Surface Pro, I think it's called the Surface Pro. That kind of intrigues me. The idea of having a large tablet with a keypad on it, that idea intrigues me. Even again, as I think about the fact that I tend to preach using a tablet. So, I mean, I still like using the Apple products. Like I mentioned, we have a bunch of them. I like iMovie. That's the program I'm using right now to do this video. It's very quick and very convenient. Not a lot of hassle to it. I will say, now that they've upgraded the program, I've upgraded operating systems and I've upgraded iMovie. It's kind of taken me a while to figure out this new one. I like GarageBand. It's really a quick way to very quick way to modify MP3 files or that kind of thing. I used a GarageBand back when we were doing a podcast. So I still like some of the features of the Apple products, but I'm just not sure if I'm going to be buying a lot more of them in the future like I have over the past decade. So I won't prolong this video any further, but I was just going to kind of tell you what some of my thoughts were on where we are now with Apple versus PC and what I'm thinking. And I would like to hear your comments on this as well, especially those who do a lot of traveling, and you can tell me what works well for you, those who travel to Asia and even those who are in the Philippines. And one quick thing, those of you who have older MacBooks and you're really not sure about upgrading, buying a new MacBook, you can upgrade the older MacBooks. Just look at some videos here on YouTube. Look up something like upgrading your MacBook with a solid state drive, and that can save you a lot of money, because that's what I did. So anyway, Apple versus PC. Let me know what you think.